Hey guys, Dr. Bodle here. Welcome back to the channel. And in this video, we're gonna dive into where I would start with your nutrition if you're looking to make massive improvements in your Hashimoto's symptoms. Now, we all know that there's a ton of information out there when it comes to this topic, and too often people will become overwhelmed and then get stuck and fail to make any progress at all. So if you're ready to make some changes, but just need that final motivating factor to get started, this video is for you. And if you're someone who struggles with Hashimoto's or hypothyroidism, but your doctor keeps telling you you're fine, and you know there has to be other ways that you can support your health, improve your energy, lose weight, and engage in life in a meaningful way, then don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so, and click the bell for new videos every Thursday. That way you can keep learning and keep working on ways to achieve your health goals. Now, whenever I make changes for a patient, I always start with nutrition first. And the reason for that is because for some people, nutrition is going to be a massive part of them getting better. And for the other people, even though it might not be as impactful, it's still going to play a significant role, and it's going to help every other strategy that we're going to try to employ. Just like getting our nutrition right can be hugely helpful, if we skip on our nutrition, it can be a massive detriment. And I've said before that we cannot out-medicate, out-supplement, or out-exercise a bad diet plan. And the cool thing is, because nutrition can have such an impact for people, many times when we do that first, before making any other changes, we can see a lot of things start to improve that maybe we didn't anticipate were going to change. When that happens, we can further simplify and make our strategies more targeted, which then can allow us to be more focused and more effective in helping you to get better. Now, you might be sitting there and saying, yeah, Dr. Brad, I agree with that. That sounds great, but I don't know where to get started, and I'm worried about making a mistake and maybe making things worse. Of course, I totally get that. And if nutrition has the power to help us heal, then it also has the power to totally throw things off the rails. So that fear is warranted. But just keep these things in mind. Number one, by merely thinking about your nutrition, that's going to put you ahead of 99% of the other people out there. And although you certainly won't be perfect, when you do think about your food, more often than not, it's going to make you more likely to make better choices. And the second thing is, we learn by doing, and you can always make changes later. You might never know how a particular approach affects your body until you try it out. And once you do give it a go, you can reflect on how it made you feel and make the necessary adjustments. So don't think that if you make some sort of choice now, you're going to be stuck into that particular way of doing things. Nutrition is all about learning and evolving over time. And speaking of evolving over time, I've always strived to provide you guys with as many options as possible because I know there's different nuances between the individual and the way that Hashimoto's affects their body. Because of the variety of impacts that it can have, I want people to have a variety of strategies. That way they can pick and choose which ones make most sense for them and which ones are going to have the greatest outcomes. You might have seen my video before where I describe nutrition as a spectrum, where some people can take more of a relaxed approach and get results, and some people need to take a stricter approach. And I still do stand by that philosophy. However, as I noted at the beginning of the video, sometimes having all those options can be too much, and it can make it really hard to know where to start. So in an effort to help with that, I've been reviewing my patient files from the past year, and I've tried to pull as much information as possible to determine what has been the best nutritional strategies for people and what is the best place for people to get started. And yes, of course, there will be nuance and there likely will be modifications. So don't come to me and say, well, Dr. Brad, I don't do that and I do just fine. I get that there's going to be differences for people. But for someone who needs the information, who needs the motivation to get started, here's where I would begin. For someone with Hashimoto's, what I would recommend is avoiding all grains, all dairy, soy, and limiting added or processed sugars. That's it. Now that might sound like a lot of changes to some people, and it might not sound like that much to others. But by using this approach, it strikes a nice balance of helping us to avoid some of those foods that can be more triggering to our immune system, while also providing us a decent amount of flexibility. This then addresses two of the biggest problems for people, which is removing enough of those food triggers that it makes a meaningful impact for our health. We want to start making improvements, we want to start seeing changes, because that then allows us to identify what other areas we need to work on. But at the same time, if we don't have that flexibility, then it can be really hard for people to know what to make for their meals, and it can make it hard for them to be consistent. As I said before, a big key to eating properly with Hashimoto's is having consistency. And because we're so often indoctrinated with this idea of, yeah, we don't want to eat too much, moderation is okay, and that might be okay for the general populace, we then inappropriately adapt that to our Hashimoto's strategy. And we think, yeah, I should be avoiding gluten most of the time, but I can have a little bit here and there. While we're not going to be perfect all the time, so don't worry about that, if we do get into a pattern where we're having gluten too frequently, that small exposure is going to continue to activate and irritate our immune system, and that's going to prevent us from making any meaningful progress. But let's go over each one of those recommendations real quickly to make sure that everything's clear. So no soy is pretty simple and straightforward, and for most people it's an easier one for them to manage because it isn't a huge part of their diet. And this is going to include things like tofu, soy milk, edamame, soy nuts, and soy sprouts. No dairy, in my opinion, is also relatively straightforward, but this one can actually get a bit confusing. Now, what I mean when I say no dairy is no food items that are made from milk products from animals. So that's no cow milk, sheep milk, goat milk, or any other kind of animal milk, no cheeses, no creams, and no butter. My one exception is that I do allow most of my patients to have ghee. Ghee is clarified butter where most of the milk proteins are removed, and it tends to make it much better tolerated for most people. It's handy for cooking, and it's nice if someone really likes that more buttery taste, as it still provides a lot of that through the fats without causing too many issues with our immune system. No dairy does not include eggs, even though they're usually in the same section of the grocery store, and it also doesn't include things like plant milks. Now, I'm not a huge fan of these products in general, as I find them to be a little bit overprocessed, and oftentimes they have added ingredients that I don't really like. But almond milk isn't milk. It's just being advertised as a milk-like product or a milk substitute. So don't get those things confused. Making sure that we're limiting our sugar intake either requires us to focus on whole unprocessed foods in general, or to take a quick look at the nutrition label. Check the part of the food label that says added sugars, but also be aware that there will be certain foods that are naturally high in sugar, and although the section for added sugars might say 0, that doesn't always mean that we're totally in the clear. But again, by simply focusing on more whole food options, this problem is going to mostly take care of itself. And finally, the big category, which is no grains. And this is definitely the part that is a bit more restrictive, but there's good reason why. Now, most of you already know the connection between gluten Hashimoto's, gluten and immune health, and gluten and gut health. So if you've done any amount of research into Hashimoto's, you've probably come across the recommendation that you should go gluten-free. Here's my problem with that. In the early stages of managing Hashimoto's, our immune system tends to be more reactive and sensitive. And because of that, you're likely to react to foods that are triggering to you, but you also might react to some foods that are just innocuous bystanders. Think of it like if you were going to push on your arm. Normally, if your arm's healthy, it doesn't hurt. But if you have a cut there, if it's irritated, then pressing on that same spot is going to cause you some issues. Now, pressing isn't necessarily a problem, but it's that environment that is leading to the pain and discomfort. The same thing can occur with our immune system and gut, where when it is overly sensitive and inflamed, it might be a little bit more reactive or struggle to break down just about anything that you throw at it. So many times when people hear that they should go gluten-free, they think, oh, I'll just go to the grocery store and choose all the things that say gluten-free. Now, sometimes that can be totally fine. And there's a lot of foods that are naturally gluten-free that are great for us to choose. But the problem comes with some of those more processed foods which either aren't naturally gluten-free and have to have the gluten removed, or they're using alternative grains as a replacement for the gluten-containing grains. The reason this is a problem is, number one, when we swap gluten-containing foods for gluten-free foods, many times we're still eating highly processed foods, and this isn't always well tolerated by the body. But the other thing is, and the thing that I think is a bit more of an issue, is that many times these gluten-free grains, although they don't have gluten, they have other proteins in them that have a similar structure and shape to gluten. And although your body should be able to tell the difference between these proteins, when it's struggling, it might have a hard time doing that. So although you might hear about people who, down the line, do just fine with rice or quinoa or corn or any of these other grains, in the beginning, I do think it can be a powerful strategy, and if we make that extra effort, I think it can lead to better results. Plus, this doesn't even go into the fact that for many people with thyroid problems, grains can cause a big shift in the way that their blood sugar responds. And although this video focused on managing our immune system reactivity, blood sugar stability is a huge aspect of helping people to get well, and it can be another independent trigger for our immune system that's important for a lot of people to manage. But I'll make sure to link that video for you as well in case you're interested in that information. But remember, today's video is about laying some reasonable groundwork and then taking action. And if you've been struggling and not knowing where to start with going grain-free, dairy-free, soy-free, and limiting your sugar. While I freely admit it won't be perfect for everyone, it's an awesome starting place, and I know it'll help you to make those first few steps to start feeling better. But as per usual, let me know what you think by leaving me a comment. What nutritional changes are you working on? What's been the best for you? And what sort of challenges did you deal with that prevented you from getting started? Let me know, and we can continue the discussion. If you like the video but need more help and you're interested in working with me one-on-one, either in person or virtually, you can always start that process by sending an email to contact@seattlethyroidhelp.com. Once we hear from you, my staff will get in touch, make sure that you qualify for a consultation, and then help you to get scheduled. During the consultation, it's absolutely no pressure. We just want to sit down, talk about what's going on with your health, talk about your goals, and determine if we're a good fit to work together. If you'd rather keep learning on your own, check out any of the other videos on the channel, follow me on Instagram or Facebook, or grab either one of my free downloads, which are listed in the description box. But that's it for this week. Thank you for watching. I hope that you found the video helpful. If you did like it, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. But my name is Dr. Bodle. I love you guys. I hope you're doing well, and I will see you in the next one.